Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. We are learning Salesforce and we have started a big module inside which we are in the sub module of data security. If you're wondering what is Salesforce and why are we doing this, look, please do check out our first video that has been posted in our channel. And also if you want your friends to learn Salesforce or if you want to learn together, then continue with me. Start a Trailhead account and finish it to earn badges and certificates. So, as we speak, we can dive into our topic. Before we dive in, if you haven't liked and subscribed to our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, so today's topic is control access to records. So, we did see control access to fields in the previous chapter. So, in this, we are going to see on control access to records and why do we need them. So, if you're having a Salesforce org and you want to access or sorry, if you want to restrict access to a particular set of records inside Salesforce, then you use control level of access to records. So if you're wondering what a record is an entry into any Salesforce object that might be a custom object that has been created by you or a normal object that has been created by default in Salesforce. So before you dive into this chapter, they are discussing a few things which I will brief it out in outline. And if you have any more doubts, you can just look into it and see if it makes sense. So they say that you have to ask these two questions before you actually give control access to any of the records. So do you want your records to be open to the user? That is, they can view, edit, create, and delete, or if you want to have access to them only to a subset of data. So if second thing is the case, then yeah, you're in the right place. And then throughout the Trailhead, they do talk about this creating a recruitment app in which you have managers, recruiters, and everyone. So here is an illustration of the same. So inside a recruiter app, the recruiter should have access to all the candidates' profile or recruitment related data, but the recruiter should not be able to delete the entry of any candidates or such. So that is where this control access to record pops in. Also, the permission on a record are always evaluated on object level and then field level and then record level. So object is the custom object that you have created and field level is for each field is the field visible to the person who's actually viewing or editing or deleting the record, and then to the record level, do they have permission to the record? So when there is a conflict between the object permission and the record level permission, imagine a user has access to the object but not has access to the record, then the most with the restrictive permission wins, which means he doesn't have access to the record. So even though he has access to the object, he will not be shown the record. So that's how it will be. So this is like a layer and layers of permission settings that can be applied to a record or a custom objects inside Salesforce, which is pretty good and also can be very difficult if you haven't documented on what level of permission that you have given to your users in case if you want to debug. Okay, so there are also four ways of controlling the access to the records as stated. One is the org wide default, then role hierarchy, sharing rule, manual sharing. Okay, so org wide defaults are like organization level. So you just specify which users have access to which one. And role level hierarchy is like in your organization, it is always a hierarchy, right? So if the person at the lowest have access to the record, then the person above them in the role hierarchy will also have access to the record until unless it has been the access has been manually removed. So we will see how to do that today. Then the sharing rules. So sharing rules is exception of an org by default. So if they have sharing rules, then a particular group of people can actually see the record, even though the org wide uh, default restricts them from accessing it. Then the manual sharing. There is a share button inside every record. So if you click on that and if you share the record with any particular person inside your organization, then that person will gain access to the record. So that also depends. Even if the user doesn't have access to the record, that overrides the permission and they get access to the record since it is being manually shared. So this is the role hierarchy of which the sharing occurs inside an organization. So next one is like we are gonna look deep into the org-wide sharing. So there is a flowchart in which they actually explain what are all the available permissions that can be set. So who is the restricted user of the object? So this is the hierarchy. So if you should ask these three questions, and based on the answer, you just set the profile settings. So who's the most restricted user of this object? Is there ever going to be an instance that the object user shouldn't be allowed to see? So if the object shouldn't be allowed to see, then you go for a sharing model of private. So if there's no, they can see it. Is there going to be an instance of this object that is the user is shouldn't be allowed to see? What is the difference between this and this? Is there even is there ever going to be an instance of this object that this user shouldn't be allowed to see? So it is the entire object? No. Is instance of this object. So it's a particular of the object. Can this object, I mean, can these records be seen? If it is yes, then public read only. So what is public read only? If it is a public read only object, then the user, any user in the hierarchy can actually view the record but cannot edit it unless he or she is the record owner. If it is public read and write, then it generally means anyone can read and write in the hierarchy. And there is another one called control by parent. So which means a user can view, edit or delete and record if he or she can perform the same action on the object it belongs to. So the statement is clear, but I'll explain a wee bit more on that. uh, so if the user has access to the object, imagine a case and a comment. So a comment is a subset of case. Okay, which means like you can add comments to a case. So the parent is the case and the child is the comment. If the user can actually have access to the parent, which is the case, then he or she can actually edit the comments or delete the comments. So that is called control by parent. So when an org has this object sharing of private or public read only, admins can grant additional access in the role hierarchy or by defining the sharing rules. So that might change it. Who's the most restricted user of this uh, object? So now we are going to answer the questions for the recruitment app that Trailhead is actually illustrating. So who is the restricted user? So normal standard employees, the restricted users. Are they allowed to view a position? All they all that they are allowed to do is view a position. Sorry, I read it wrongly. So a standard employee in a company recruitment app, in a recruiting company, they are allowed to view the position. But is there any instance of this object that the user isn't allowed to see? No, they can actually see everything. Although the values of minimum pay and maximum pay for the field is actually hidden from a previous chapter, which is like using the field level security. But they are still allowed to view all the positions that is open. Okay. Is there any way that they are not allowed to edit? Yes, they are actually aren't allowed to any push, they are not allowed to edit any positions. Okay, so since we answered yes for this, so The sharing model of this position is public read only because they can actually read all the positions that is actually available, but they're not allowed to edit it or delete it. Okay, so this is how the org-wide sharing default looks like. So where you can find it is like you can go to the setup from your quick find box, then enter sharing settings, and there you go. So you will have all the default internal access and the default external access to the objects that is actually present. Okay, so you can actually change it based on your uh, need for the records. So now uh, by default, uh, there is this one thing. So you have all these objects. For each object, select the default internal and external access. That is what we are going to do. To disable automatic access using your hierarchy, deselect grant access using hierarchies. So basically, this is what I said you said about in few minutes back in this video, that you can actually disable the access of the hierarchy of any custom object doesn't have a default access of controlled by parent. So if they don't have access to the parent, then they don't have access to the record. So by default, a role hierarchy automatically grants access to the record for users above the record owner. So if I'm the record owner, imagine I am a recruiter who or a standard employee who can view the record, but my manager has default access to all my records. Setting an object to private makes those records visible only to the record owners and above them. So if you set it to private, it will still be accessible to the role hierarchy. But if you're setting it to public read, then everyone in the company can actually read it. Use the grant access using hierarchy checkbox to disable access to the record to users above the record owner in the hierarchy. So, which means if you deselect this option, the user will have, if I'm the record owner, only I will have access to the record. Even people who are uh, in the hierarchical order will not have access to the record. But if uh, if a user like admin, he has access to all the records in the organization. So or if a user with the permission of view all and modify all permission, uh, which is view all data and modify all data system permission, they can still access the record, is the record that you created, like even though you have deselected the grant access using hierarchies. So that is one thing you have to look into, but those access are actually given to system admins or administrator or developers to look into the data. So that's it. So we are given a challenge here where you have to create a custom object called projects, object name, record name. You have to create a record inside that, and then you have to give a organization wide default sharing settings for that object. So let's dive and complete the task. Oh, mm, just a minute. Okay, I guess I did pause the video and I am resuming it. So I did forget my password. That is why I guess I have found it. Oh, oh, I'm just gonna reset my password and then I will be back. Okay, seems like my dev org has been expired because I haven't used it for a long while, so I created a new uh, dev org to do the test. So here we have, that is good. So now what we're gonna do is like create a custom object. So as we do it before, let's go to the settings and object manager, create a custom object with the name project, label is project, projects, object name is project. So I don't think we need any description, but we have a record name to be project name, and it is gonna be text. Okay, that's perfect. So save. Now since we have created a custom object, now we are going to configure organization wide default sharing settings for the project. So let's go to home, sharing settings, yep, and organization wide. Okay, so now we should have our custom object project. Let's search for it. Project here. Okay, so now we have to edit this uh the project so that the is visible only to the record owner, and this is gonna be private. We're gonna disable this. Wait, yep. So as we read this, you have to make it as private, so to make those visible only to the record owners. So we made it private on both, and we have to remove this grant access using hierarchy so that the hierarchical person doesn't get access, and save it, and let's reconfirm. Okay, one or more settings. Okay, so it has been changed to private and private. I just refreshed the page and it worked. So since we are done with that, we are gonna check to on the points. So they are not gonna check for this. If it is above the hierarchy, you just have to enable the checkbox. Yep, that said, we have done this challenge. So I hope this video was clear enough to explain you the control access to records. If you have any doubts, feel free to bring it. If not, catch you guys in the next video. Until then, bye bye.